There we go.
Okay. Well, welcome everybody to our winter remote meeting. Appreciate everybody taking the time to join us today. I will now call the meeting to order. One thing, I apologize in advance. I'm running Zoom off my iPad, so as I reach to mute and unmute, I apologize for my arm blocking my camera. For the first order of business, Wes, I'd ask for you to please call roll.
Dylan Klappmeyer.
Here.
Superintendent Arnson.
Good morning.
Good morning. Commissioner Esau.
Here.
Senator Small.
Here.
Representative Buttry. I did not see. Yeah, I know he had a.
He's in committee.
Commissioner Armstrong.
Here. Good morning.
Good morning. Commissioner McGinley.
I'm here.
Thank you, sir. Chair Hopfov.
Here.
Vice Chair Bentley is excused. He took his kids to Disneyland. Chanda Hermanson.
Here.
Shane Etzweiler.
Good morning here.
Patty Fleming.
Here.
Adam Gilbertson.
Here.
Heather O'Hara let me know she is in a hearing this morning, but she may join later. Jason Palin, is he here? He is in South Africa, so he did tell me that his internet is a little bit wonky and he'll be getting on hopefully as soon as he can. Deb Poteet emailed me. She is unable to be here today. David Smith.
Present.
Amber Terry. Bo Brunsma. Dale Carpenter. Mr. Carpenter.
I'm here.
There you are. And we just had Amber Terry join us as well. She just joined in. Quentin Queer
Here.
and Jim Wanacott.
Here.
All right. Chair Hopfov, we have a quorum.
Perfect. Thank you, Wes. First order of business, Wes sent out both the agenda and the meeting minutes to all of us in advance. So the first item is approval of the agenda, and I would accept a motion to approve that agenda.
I move. Patty Fleming.
Okay. Thanks, Patty.
Second.
Second.
Jason Tabor.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. The agenda motion passes. We've got public comment in here twice, one at the beginning and one at the end. Outside of the perfunctory items, we're not taking any action. So at this time, I would ask if there's any public comment. Okay, hearing none, there will be an opportunity again at the end of the meeting if there is any public comment, and I will ask for it at that time. Next, to the meeting minutes for the last meeting, if I would entertain a motion to either accept or change the minutes from last meeting.
So moved.
Thanks, Mary. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thanks, Patty. Been moved and seconded to approve the meeting minutes from the last meeting. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Those opposed, same sign. Meeting minutes pass. Our first order of business outside of the perfunctory items is Title III training, and I would like to invite and turn the floor over to Ryan Van Valleguyen. Ryan, welcome to the SWIB.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. Very good on the last name. Thank you for that. Ryan Van Valleguyen. I'm the interim chief, bureau chief for job service. Wes had asked me to do a short presentation on Wagner Pizer Title III. You'll notice, for those of you that heard from Mr. Valdez several meetings ago, Wagner Pizer was part of the WIOA overall education he provided, but I'll give a little bit more detail. So if you want to go to the next slide there, Wes. So we'll just do a brief history, the intention of Wagner Pizer, how it fits into WSDE, DLI strategy, a couple stories about job seeker journeys and some business journeys, which should give you a pretty good idea of the kind of things we're working on. So next one there, Wes. So for approximately about 130 years, the federal government was attempting to establish employment offices, originally intended to provide war-related jobs for folks and to assist veterans when they return from war. There was always a bit of a struggle between federal employment offices and state employment offices. But finally in 1933, after the great market crash of 1929, and approximately 25% of Americans were not working, Representative Pizer and Senator Wagner forced a bill that actually enabled Wagner Pizer, the Wagner Pizer Act, to establish a national employment system and for cooperation with states in the promotion of such and purposes. So we have this interaction between the Fed and the state running employment offices. So you can see a couple of bullet points there. In order to promote, establish, and maintenance of a national system of public employment service offices, the United States Employment Service shall be established and maintained within the Department of Labor. The act itself established the Secretary of Labor's duties regarding unemployment and employment offices. And this was actually before unemployment insurance was in place. Wagner Pizer was in place. It also established that in coordination with the state agencies and the staff of such agencies, that they assist in the planning and implementation of activities to enhance the professional development and career development of such staff. So your Department of Labor, Job Service, WSD staff, and community providers that are non-state providers, in order to strengthen the provision of broad range of career guidance services. So this is, well, what do we do? The identification of job openings should be noted, including providing intensive outreach to small and medium-sized employers and enhanced employer services, provision of technical assistance and training to other providers of workforce development activities, relating to counseling and employment-related services, and the development of new strategies for coordinating counseling technology. So as you can see, you'll hear about a lot of those things as you talk about the WIOA things that the SWIB establishes and approves, and as we talk about our workforce system. So in order to improve service delivery and avoid duplication of services and enhance coordination of services, these staff in the statewide services are to be in underserved areas and shall be located with one-stop centers. So for those of you that have been on the SWIB for a while, certifying the one-stop is one of the things we need done. And it says all these WIO pieces, including Wagner Pizer funded staff, should be working at the one-stop together. You can go to the next one there. Thank you, Wes. So that I just pulled out a few things out of the act itself that kind of tell you what are we doing, what should we be doing, what does the act say we should be doing. So in the act itself, 90% of the sums allotted to each state may be used for job search and placement services to job seekers, including unemployment insurance claimants, including counseling, testing, occupational and labor market information, assessment, and referrals to employers, for appropriate recruitment services and special technical services for employers, and for any of the following: evaluation of programs, developing linkages between services funded under this act and related federal or state legislation, including the provision of labor exchange services at educational sites, providing services for workers who have received notice of permanent layoff or impending layoff, or workers in occupations which are experiencing limited demand due to technological change, impact of imports, or plant closures. Go to the next one there, Wes. Also developing, providing labor market and occupational information. So you can see our economists hard at work in that bullet point. Developing a management information system and compiling and analyzing reports. Administering the work tests for the state unemployment compensation system, including making eligibility assessments and providing job finding and placement services for employment insurance claims and whatnot. And then lastly, providing unemployment insurance claimants with referrals to and application assistance for training and education resources and programs, including Pell Grants, Montgomery GI Bills, education assistance, voc rehab, all. And then in 1973, it brought it all under the WIOA Act, which you guys have already learned about previously. So long story short, what is Wagner-Peiser meant to do? And how does Job Service, Workforce Services Division, Department of Labor, and other partners use Wagner-Peiser to put it all together, if you will? So you go to the next slide there, Wes. So how does Wagner-Peiser fit into our workforce development strategy? It allows WSD to deliver customized services to both job seekers and businesses. And it allows us to move back and forth with when funding gaps for specific programs where workload needs exist. You know, that comes up and down with unemployment going up and down. Sometimes we work more with job seekers, other times work more with businesses, and just depends on what's going on with the economy. And then we also do many things that Wagner-Peiser pays for our staff to promote programs that don't necessarily come with staffing dollars all the way, or promote other programs that are short funded. On the staffing side, I guess would be the way to say that. So you've probably heard a lot about ARPA over the last couple of years. And so that never came with staffing dollars, but we've helped hundreds, thousands of Montanans with rapid retraining. And that's all been Wagner-Peiser dollars, been able to staff us to help those people. We do help promote apprenticeship. Not all apprenticeship dollars are funded through apprenticeship grants. We do a lot of work of promoting and helping establish apprenticeships with Wagner-Peiser dollars. Newly created business and educational engagement specialists. We're using those where people are more dedicated just to business and education. Not necessarily all of our economists, but using economic data and working with economists, we use Wagner-Peiser staffing to help, you know, share that information, provide labor market information for a business that might make us request about something. We help promote MCIS in schools. MCIS does have some of its own funding. So, you know, folks can make educated decisions about, you know, what they want to do with their career. HelpLink dollars didn't have staffing dollars, and you've heard about those over the years too. All those programs are, you know, putting people to work, listening to businesses. What do they need? How can we help them? That kind of stuff. We use Wagner-Peiser for that. It also is a source of stability for us. It fills the ups and downs of funding mechanisms. Sometimes either the Fed won't renew a program like trade adjustance assistance in a timely manner. Well, the needs are still there, but we don't have the federal funding. So we don't have to go up and down with the number of staff we have, because Wagner-Peiser is kind of the gel that puts it together, like it makes it stable. Flexibility, opportunity to provide services to business and job seekers as unemployment rates go up and down, as I said before, and ability to shift focus as needed to local areas. You know, sometimes we have, you know, areas that get hit harder by unemployment or a major employer layoff. We can use our Wagner-Peiser staffing dollars to, you know, shift energy in that direction as needed. And then promotion of other programs, federal bonding. We help people identify that they're hireable to an employer and that they're eligible for federal bonding. Incumbent worker training that has its own dollars and its own bill, but we do a lot of promotion of incumbent worker training within job service using Wagner-Peiser dollars to help businesses fulfill their employment pipelines and train their current staff. And then we also, support and promote community and one-stop partners. So there's those things that if I only had particular programs, the SWIB was obviously familiar with the adult and dislocated worker programs as the approver. That's what I would be focused on all the time and all I would talk about. Well, I've got so many people that aren't in those programs that need help. Wagner-Peiser helps us help those folks. In the sense that you don't have to be eligible for Wagner-Peiser. If you're looking to work in the United States, for our purposes, hopefully in Montana, conducting or looking to conduct business in the state of Montana, Wagner-Peiser staff funded can help you. You don't have to, meet an income guideline or be looking for work or be laid off in a particular area to be eligible. So it's kind of broad frame eligibility, which is really nice. All we do is gather some data elements so you become, we can track you in our computer system, and that's all we need from you to be able to help. And the most important part of all this, the flexibility to meet the client, either the business or the job seeker, where they are at. So there's that stuff. Does anyone have any questions about kind of the history and how we use it? It probably make a lot more sense when I get to the next 2 slides, where I talk about just examples of who we're helping and we're using Wagner-Peiser dollars for. Seeing none. So,
I don't have any in the chat, so
Okay.
good to continue.
yeah, we'll take questions at the end too.
I have a question.
yeah.
Can you hear me? This is Mary Armstrong. And you may be getting to this, Ryan.
Yeah.
Do you have like a stats on how many employees or employers you've helped by region in Montana?
I don't have them available right now, but I can certainly work with Wes to get that to the SWIB.
Well, I would certainly appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, Wes, don't let me forget that. I'll write it down too. So if there's anything more specific related to that, please let Wes know and we'll work on getting that to you. No problem. So if you go to the next slide there, Wes. So I just said a whole bunch of like, well, what do? You've got these programs and whatnot. Well, sometimes people just want to hear who did you help and how did you help them? Like, how does it all come together? Because job service, WSD handles so many different programs and you can help someone in so many different ways. So I thought I would just share a few job seeker journeys about what is a day in the life of someone that's working with the Wagner-Peiser program at a job service or somewhere else in WSD doing. So just a quick couple examples of job seekers I'll give. I first worked with Amber and she was actually in Montana Women's Prison and was identified to be getting out eligible for parole. So we just started to get to know her, built some rapport, understand what she'd been through, what kind of work she had. We started practicing interviews and career planning and took advantage of what resources we could in the prison. When she got out, we used some of our funding sources like the adult program, and provided some supportive services, the bus pass, helped her with some interview clothes. What does a budget look like? And it sounds weird, but we just went shopping. If you've been incarcerated for a while, if you go, and this is what happened to Amber, we went to Walmart to get some initials. She got a place to stay, which we worked through. And she stood in the shampoo aisle and she started to cry. She hadn't made a choice about shampoo in several years and was actually really intimidated. Now we don't necessarily do that by default for everyone, but this was appropriate for Amber. And then picking out clothes and whatnot, it was really powerful. And then we actually rode the bus with Amber too, because the bus, if you haven't made a decision about your transportation in several years, even figuring out the bus schedule is kind of intimidating. So we worked with her on applications and job search. She actually helped when she got to interviews, helped the employer understand she was eligible for federal bonding. So she was insurable. And then actually the employer understood about the work opportunity tax credit. And she got that first job, and we had to work on retaining it as she kind of made adjustments to being on her own. But at this point, she's now working as a fleet manager for a large trucking company. So Amber is a success. And if without Wagner Pizer, where we could use those staffing dollars to, go to Walmart with her and just make a decision, help her with interview close through some of our programs, ride the bus with her, build her confidence, we would never have been able to help Amber to the degree that we did. Another person, his name's Jared. He was actually a walk-in to the local job service here in Billings. He was living in his car, facing homelessness and losing the car too. He couldn't keep it running. He had just been through divorce and lost his daughter through that divorce because he didn't have, a stable place to live. We actually worked with him, stabilized him with a temp job. He didn't need training necessarily, he had some skills. We got him in touch with some of our one-stop partners that addressed some of his mental health issues. One of the other one-stop partners, the HRDC, helped him with some temporary housing. We co-enrolled him in some of our programs and got him a motel for a little while till that rapid rehousing where he got an actual apartment. And he now has a $45,000 a year job. And more importantly to Jarrett, he has the opportunity to be with his daughter again. So another success wouldn't have happened without Wagner Pizer dollars. Angel was on unemployment. We'll just say he's had a very tough life, history of drug use, some abuse, wasn't necessarily incarcerated. We started working with him just on that level, not necessarily enrolled into a program that we're spending training dollars on. But as we got to know him, it became very apparent that he actually, being an apprentice, made a lot of sense. So we worked with our apprenticeship folks. We identified an employer that actually took him on through an on-the-job training in one of our programs. And an employer actually, this one was kind of touching because the employer was actually ready to close his shop up. But it was a very small electrician. But he was so enthused about working with Angel that he actually decided to keep his shop open. And Angel's working there to this day. So just another, without Wagner Pizer, we wouldn't have been able to help him. Cheryl, here's just another example. Someone who was actually, educated had a master's degree, was an RN, but she had just experienced a expired license as she was taking care of elderly parents during COVID. So we actually enrolled her in ARPA rapid retraining and got her caught up on her continuing ed. We paid for her license and other coursework for additional endorsements. And she's now an RN for a statewide provider for low income folks. I worked with John. He was looking for part-time work. He'd already worked with Voc Rehab for some job readiness. And Voc Rehab introduced him to us. I actually just made one phone call to an established employer and worked with John to present his professional experience during interviews instead of talk about things that are wrong. Talk about all your good experience, John. He got the job and moved off of public assistance at the time because it actually ended up being a full-time job, which he wasn't looking for. But when he realized he could support himself, he opted for full-time. Once again, wouldn't happen without Wagner Pizer funding. Basically, we have thousands of opportunities to meet customers where they're at every day, and regardless of how complicated their barriers are to employment, which I think I shared here. Is there any questions about the job seeker side that I can talk about the business, some of the business things we're working on? See none. I do see Barb Wagner put a few comments in the chat section there. That we had 4,500 employers in Montana, just not broken out by region in fiscal year 2022. And then another comment or two in there. So that might help understand how many businesses we're working with too. So Wes, if you want to go to the next slide. In here, I just used several examples. I'll go through them so you can just kind of see where we're at with businesses. As I mentioned before, the ARPA rapid retraining grant didn't come with staffing dollars. So we've staffed, with Wagner Pizer dollars. Just some good examples here. Great Falls Public Schools, we've enrolled 67 of their employees, upskilling them as paraprofessionals with hiring incentives. We just are wrapping up a class of working with down in Hardin with some tribal entities and education entities, 18 CNAs, some of which, or most of which, are funded through ARPA. And just another example, down in Lame Deer, we're working with Morningstar Propane. We've got multiple employees getting CDL certifications. So instead of a short-term seasonal job, they're actually able to work year-round to stabilize, their living situations financially. In Bozeman, we've brought employers to the jail, and they're doing hiring right out of the jail. Obviously, they're aware of federal bonding and work opportunity tax credit as it goes with that. So that's just a different example of connections we're making out there on behalf of the employers. We've got a welding shop here in Billings that we've got 8 people in right now. For the most part, those folks have been assisted with ARPA, getting tools, and then working through getting their resumes ready, making sure they're retaining the job if they have some soft skills. And then the employer has been really good about kind of holding them accountable on their end too. So it's a partnership with the employer, not just a give me employees kind of situation. The employer is holding them accountable. And then once they achieve certain levels of welding certifications along the way, they actually get to move up in pay in much the same way an apprenticeship would work, but they're not technically apprentices. In Libby, we just did customer service training for local hospitality businesses for 19 people, and they already want us to put together the next one. Just the basics, this is basic customer service and how do you help people, please and thank you. But surprisingly enough, the businesses are saying we need that training and we need it happening. So business blueprints, the job service and WSD partners up in Kalispell have been putting on different subject matter conversations, sometimes quarterly, sometimes monthly. In many situations, we've had several hundred attendees. So the businesses are like, this is important, thank you. One thing that was always interesting to me is non-traditional apprenticeships. So you got plumbers, electricians, and certified trades, whatnot. But we also have, whatever, for the most part, if you can name the occupation, we can probably create an apprenticeship for it. Things like master brewers, which is really popular in Montana. Butcher.
Hey, Ryan,
Yep.
could I go back? I don't understand. I don't understand what business blueprints.
Business, say that again. Oh,
I don't understand what the business blueprints are.
Sure, thank you. Business blueprints is usually kind of a subject matter that just businesses want to talk about and how do I deal with it in my workplace. It could be marijuana in the workplace. What does it look like from a legal standpoint? How do I work with an employee who may have a medical prescription? So it's really just this interaction of the subject matter can change.
So is it, I guess, are you saying it's kind of HR subjects for business owners?
Many times, yep, absolutely. Yeah, and it could be HR subjects. It could be social media and recruiting. How does a business owner use social media? So if you ever run into a business or yourself are curious, I want to know more about X, we might be able to help you. So does that answer your question?
It sure does. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And like I said, for non-traditional apprenticeships, locksmiths, facilities maintenance is huge across all kinds of employers and specifically across school districts right now. So we're actually working on what that looks like to go from what we'll call a traditional janitor all the way up to the director of facilities through an apprenticeship model. Mechanics, we have over 1,800 programs that apprenticeships are already written up for. And then in the non-traditional models, we can actually customize them to the employer. Oftentimes an apprenticeship specialist will be working on that, but we're out there promoting that and coordinating with them from the job service side as well. They are, one part of WSD, and we work very close together and collaborate to try to meet that employer's needs. Veterans, sometimes that's just an employer that says, I would like direct access to hiring some veterans. Can you find me some veterans? Yes, we can. Let it call us and we will put it out there for you. Something as simple as recruiting. Well, businesses know how to recruit, right? Well, sometimes it's just, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I just need another set of eyes on this. We have an interior design shop here that was essentially getting no job candidates in a very competitive market. Obviously pay is everything, but not only one place can win at the pay game, right? The one who pays the most. Not everybody can do that. We actually promoted and rewrote their job opening. And it didn't take us very long to have to close the job because they had too many applicants. Well, what was the hook? We did a quick video and put it on Facebook. And the hook was they just needed to tell people they could bring their dog to work once a month. And they were, it sounds like the oddest thing, but when we identified that, we're like, why aren't you telling people that? And like I said, all of a sudden, we have too many applicants. Shut them off. So it was a good problem to have. So I said, I just wanted to show the array of employers we're working with. We are intentionally trying to grow in the ways that we serve businesses. We've allocated additional FTE to those services. So that is something we've undergone over the last year, and they're just now getting going. So, and hiring people with that skill set even more so than people that can work on the social services side and the businesses side, because it's a little bit of both depending on who you're working with. So we're hoping that strategy, we've got some data that helps us, identify high needs occupations, high needs areas that will help us achieve those goals that the employers are looking for. So any other questions on the business journey? And we'll get to the last slide here. All right, so wrapping up, Wegner-Pfizer also lets us do outreach to underemployed and underutilized populations. And that could be across the entire state and every county. Part of our role right now at WSD is helping underutilized and underemployed populations gain full employment of self-sufficiency with all the job openings. So we're trying to engage traditionally underutilized populations, whether that veterans, low income, minorities. Believe it or not, folks out in rural communities have different challenges, whether it's with technology or whatnot. Justice involved, youth, you name it. We're also trying to out there to get more people engaged in the workforce. Without Wegner-Pfizer, we're just a couple of different programs and people are either eligible or they're not. So that's how we're using Wegner-Pfizer, is the glue that puts it all together. So we can just meet the needs of the employers and the seekers wherever they're at. So that's all I got. Any questions?
So this is Mary Armstrong again. So along with, the reason I requested if you had it by region, it'd be really helpful to know if you have goals that are regionally specific. I mean, for instance, the county seat in Valley Counties in Glasgow, we used to have a job service. We don't anymore. It's in Wolf Point. It's very difficult. So here's that rural situation. It's very difficult for us to, the convenience of having this in Wolf Point really defeats the purposes. So I just wondered do you have some goals associated with where you're headed, and do you keep stats about successes and that sort of thing?
Yeah, part of our reorg is part of that goal. How do we meet business needs? Trying to use data, what kind of unemployment rates are in what counties? What are the future jobs? What are our current needs? Are we successfully outreaching to a community like Glasgow, engaging stakeholders such as yourself? It's where we're at and where we're headed to. So we would love to be talking to folks such as yourself about what do you see in your community? What kind of data do we have? Some of the data we have to figure out how to present it, if you will, to be able to share it and market it. But I think a lot of listening sessions, like you see this, we see this, we probably have the data to support it. That could be engaging with your entire community, from you as a commissioner to your mayor, to the school, to your employers, with the other social service agencies, that we're all trying to get people to work in self-sufficiency. So I think Commissioner Esau is on the call too. We're in process of all that as well. What does it look like, and what does success look like? And it doesn't have to look the same in Glasgow as it does in Billings. What makes the most sense for Glasgow? So as we get that regional data, we're actually in a current, Barb Wagner just put that in there. We're actually in the process of trying to articulate that better, I guess, goal setting across WSD to meet that exact success. Does that help?
Yeah, that's great. I appreciate that. So who would I talk to, you or Barb, about some specifics that we have here that might fit in the program?
I'd be happy to talk to you.
Okay.
Barb's usually pretty willing to listen too, if not always. So I start with me. If it's something I can't answer or need to carry, I'd be more than happy to have Barb or Wes, or the entire same thing for the entire SWIB. If you guys have some needs in your communities, please reach out to us, and we'll see what we can do to support that.
Terrific. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, and Mary, just to follow up, I agree with everything Ryan said. Part of our reorg is really to narrow down into what are our successes? Who are we serving? How many people are we serving? I don't feel like we've tracked that in the past in a way that's super helpful. So in these changes, we will definitely be doing that. So just know we're making changes.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I've got kind of a unique situation that we can provide some innovation there. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Ryan Shane from the Great Falls Area Chamber, and thank you for the presentation as well. And know that you guys are working on those regional business engagement specialists, and just share with you, I think, the opportunity to engage with your local chambers. We've had a great relationship with ours here in Great Falls. And so I think that partnership, as you're trying to engage with businesses, is one of your core goals. Your chamber is kind of the hub to help you do that and help meet some of the needs of those businesses and the different regions where you have these specialists at. And so again, good job. It's exciting to see, and looking forward to good results as you guys continue to move ahead.
Yeah, good to hear. Thank you. Appreciate that. Spot on.
There any other questions for Ryan? Well, Ryan, thank you for the presentation. I loved hearing those success stories that you wove in there at the beginning. That's encouraging. So I appreciate your time this morning.
Yeah, thank you.
Next on the agenda, morning, Erica, and welcome back to the SWIB. Turn it over to Erica Swanson with JMG to talk about the 22-23 progress and WIOA support.
Perfect. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for inviting me to share about Jobs for Montana's graduates. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here with all of you. There we go. Okay. All right. Are you guys able to see my screen?
Yes, Erica, looks good.
Super. Okay. So what is Jobs for Montana's Graduates? I thought I would start there today to share with you for new members of the SWIB and for those of you that are not familiar with Jobs for Montana's Graduates of who we are, what we are. We're a model that develops students' essential skills that are needed for the workforce, and we're situated in schools across the state, both middle school, high school, and we also provide, we're also a youth provider for WIOA. Our foundational pieces that we use for teaching those students those essential skills, and why the essential skills are important is because when we listen to employers or business owners, we hear that students aren't coming ready to begin the work or have the skills to communicate or be team members. And so what makes us different than other classes within schools are that the students are practicing these skills day in and day out. They're understanding how they would use them in the world of work, even if they're not going into the world of work right after school. Even as a middle schooler, they're understanding the importance of these essential skills for later on in life. And this is delivered through our through project-based learning, which is the vehicle in which we have students practicing those skills. It's the ability for students to learn by doing, and it involves the students being more engaged in their learning process. An example of this would be that picture that I showed you on the front. Those students were really interested in agriculture. And so there's different aspects of agriculture that the students were all interested in. The young ladies were interested in microgreens. They had a student that was interested in marketing. They had students that were interested in design and building. And together, these individuals came up with a driving question of how could we make a difference in our community, producing organic growing microgreens to others in our community. And so they did this, and each subgroup created their own project within the overarching through the project-based learning. So the girls learned how to grow their microgreens. The gentlemen, they milled their own wood, and they were engaged in this. And now they actually have an active business in their community with that microgreen trailer selling their microgreens. The students do a great job of sharing that story, but it gets you really excited that they were involved in creating it and making it happen. They're the ones that talked to the business owners. They're the ones that did the research. They're the ones that learned from what didn't work and then came back to make it better. So that really demonstrated their abilities to practice those essential skills that business people are looking for. Trauma-informed care is another foundational piece of ours. It's important to recognize that their students, their past and their current, and how can you have control over, not control, but how can you manage the stress or the trauma that you've had in life, and recognize those triggers and still be part of the workforce and not blow out, and to have some self-reflection and bring yourself back so that you can deal with it. And then the third piece is that employer engagement. It's the exploration, explore, and experience. This is when students invite those in their communities to come in and talk about their career pathways, demonstrate, or actually inviting students that are interested into the world of work, so that if you see yourself doing it, you're more apt to do it. And so if a student didn't know anything about welding and now they're there and they get to experience it and see it, they're more apt to ask more questions or understand it. Also knowing what their strengths are. We use Montana Information System, the MCIS, sorry, I have a cold, NCIS, to be able to do some assessments, do some career exploration so that the students can see some different avenues if they're like good at art, and so they can see design and other aspects that they might look at for careers. And then that's the experiences. Being able to do some job shadowing, some interns, some apprenticeships. And it also creates some nice partnerships. We formed some partnerships with some Chamber of Commerce, Northwest Energy, AT&T, Dick Anderson Constructions, to be able to get those entities out into some of our rural communities that may not have a lot of job explorations happening. They're willing to go out there or zoom in to those students and have those kind of conversations. And then again, it creates that connection for students to see what's in their communities, outside of their communities, but also in our nation. How does this look in a classroom? It's a guided learning incorporating what students are interested in. Again, I shared with you those students were interested in ag, and how could each one of them have a piece of the learning process. And it was all incorporated with what the students were willing to learn or wanted to learn. And then the teacher being the guide in helping them build those skills of, okay, let's do some brainstorming. What roles are each person going to take? Who's going to communicate what does our budget look like? So there's multifacets in it, and it's the actual hands-on learning those processes, and then recognizing how they apply in the world of work or school, and how you need those essential skills after high school. Students learn leadership with the hands-on approach. Again, kind of explanatory with that, but understanding, how to have a voice, how to contribute your ideas, are valuable points that they learn while having that leadership hands-on approach. Students are allowed to foster belonging and a safe place to try new things. So it's that ability, if I didn't know it, then how do I find it? Then how do I get to experience it? And then can I see myself doing it? It's just as important to recognize what they are interested in as much as what they're not interested in. And so again, if they are planning to attend post-secondary, maybe that helps eliminate some of those ideas that they thought they would like to do, and then allowing them to then pursue something else or vice versa. And then that's that connectivity to school and community. Is that sharing of projects. It's inviting people into their classroom to share. Again, there's multiple levels on how they connect through community service as well. They do a lot within their communities to practice those essential skills. And I need to back up just a moment. I apologize. I missed a slide. And I don't have it on here, but the model is framed with competencies within the schools. So we have, it's a competency base. We have 37 core competencies based that we have students be able to visualize of how to communicate, teamwork, are just a couple of those competencies that the students are engaging in. And so they start at introduction, and then we try to get them up to proficiency. So that is how we measure the success of students within the classroom. And again, it's that if you introduce it, you practice it, you become it. And so that's how we measure the model for success with students. The impact of jobs for Montana's graduates as a whole. This is last year's data. Last year between middle school, high school, our college success is not in these numbers, but we served 1,100 students. This year we're already up to 1,300, and we haven't entered our second half of the year of students that are participating, so that number will go up. Last year, we graduated 300 seniors ready to go into the workforce with these essential skills. we had a 95% graduation rate of those students that were part of the Jobs for Montana Graduates model. You can see 94% of them went out and got employment, either full-time or part-time. And then 35 of them pursued either 2-year, 4-year, or trade schools after graduation. Where are we? We currently have 57 models. We have 36 high schools, 17 middle schools, 1 alternative program, 2 in or out of school models, which is the WIOA, and then 1 college success model up at the Fort Peck Community College. Again, within these schools, we have several models. An example of that would be our Joliet Middle School. They have a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade model, but they're in 1 school. So that's how we're able to reach more students within that community. And again, we just added 3 new schools. Thank you for your contribution. We added Fromberg Middle School and High School. And then we had the, excuse me. And then Deer Lodge High School as well. This is our team. They are across the state as well. They each have a region in which they participate with the schools and the students. And thanks again. Is there any other questions? Any questions?
Yeah, can you just explain a little bit more of that in and out school program, that part?
Sure. So our in and out of school is the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. We are one of the contract youth providers in Mako District 10. And so we get an opportunity to deliver the model to those individuals that are out of school, because the percentage of students that we have to serve with the out of school piece for the requirements of WIOA. So that's how we get the in and out of school youth.
Okay, I just see Dillon was marked red, and that's what I was wondering
Oh,
about.
they're our alternative school. I apologize for that. So
Yeah.
they are our alternative school. And so we have a lot of interactions with the Youth Challenge down there, incorporating the model within their core competencies as well to deliver the services that they provide down there in Dillon. Yes.
Oh, perfect. Okay, that explains it real well.
Yeah, I apologize for that. So, and then again, when we are a part of that, when they're going out to their respective schools, if they're going back, we let them know where we have a model or how to find resources as well, the counseling department. Thank you for the question.
Any other questions for Erica? Well, Erica, thank you for presenting today. And those are some pretty impressive statistics, and having 95% graduation and 95% employment. They're impressive. And I imagine the 6% that weren't employed might very well be in that 35% category moving on to higher ed. So outstanding results. Thank you again.
All right, thank you.
Next on the agenda, I'd like to welcome Kendra Lodwick to the floor to talk about Voc Rehab's comprehensive statewide needs assessment. Okay, Kendra, I'll turn it over to you.
And Eric, before you do, Chair Hoffhoff, excuse me. Oh, thank you, Erica. That's what I was going to ask for.
Excuse me, I was just getting over a coughing fit. I'm actually having a difficult time sharing this as a slideshow without it consuming my my Zoom. So you'll have to give me 1 second. Excuse me.
No, you're good. We've got plenty of time.
Would you like me to share my screen, Kendra, with the presentation?
That might be helpful. Then I won't, yeah, that probably would be helpful and potentially more expedient. So if that works, that's great. I appreciate that. Thanks. Again, my name's Kendra Lodewick, and I am working with Bloom Consulting on the Montana Vocational Rehabilitation and Blind Services Comprehensive Statewide Needs Assessment. So it's a big mouthful, but my purpose here today is just to talk a little bit about the needs assessment, what our goals are, how we're interacting with different partners, and including the workforce system, but also businesses in the needs assessment, and answer any questions that you have. So this first slide talks about the project purpose in a pretty detailed way. And basically, the comprehensive statewide needs assessments are required by the federal government and the Federal Rehabilitation Act for vocational rehabilitation statewide organizations to conduct every 3 years. And the Vocational Rehabilitation and Blind Services in Montana will use the results from the needs assessments to develop and update its state plan for vocational rehabilitation services and help determine objectives and priorities for services and rehabilitation providers. So the focus is on overall service needs, but also a particular focus on the rehabilitation needs of unserved and underserved populations. And we'll talk a little bit in detail, a little bit more on the next slide about who they are and who some of those focus populations are. So our role in conducting the needs assessment is to help understand sort of the VRBS's goals for the needs assessment, what they want to get out of it. And then once we've identified that, developing the instruments or protocols that will help collect the needed data to answer the questions that they have, conduct outreach to different partners and stakeholders, and then collect data that will respond to the program or the CNSA goals. And finally, to conduct sort of analysis across the different data sources and synthesize it together into a report. So it provides a good opportunity for VRBS to conduct broader outreach to different and diverse partners. And as you know, partially using some of the connections that are built through the CSNA to establish stronger, longer-term connections that they can maintain. So I think that's kind of that's a little bit of the project purpose in a nutshell. And I guess I should say now that if anyone wants to interrupt with questions, feel free to do so along the way. We can also take questions at the end, but happy to have this be more of a conversation than a presentation. So if you want to go on to the next slide, that'd be great. Okay, so this one is very small and detailed in fulls, but I'm going to just kind of walk through quickly the primary research questions that we're answering to give you a sense of what the content and the purpose will be. So first, we're asking, what's the prevalence of disability in Montana, and how does that context inform policy and program planning? Then we're asking, a lot of that will come through secondary data sources, some administrative data sources. Then we're asking what the rehabilitation needs of people with disabilities in Montana are and how they vary by different characteristics like geography, for instance, urban versus rural, population, or other qualities. So this under the 2 here, it's very dense because this is a lot of the different kind of subgroups of individuals that we'll be looking at in particular and trying to collect information on to understand their experience, how the system is serving them and what it could do differently. So those that include individuals with most significant disabilities, individuals with disabilities who are unserved or underserved, and that could be people with deafness or other hearing impairments, blindness or other visual impairments, deaf blindness, serious or chronic behavioral health issues, brain injuries, ambulatory disabilities, and developmental or intellectual disabilities. So that first group is sort of different types of disabilities that people may experience. And then we'll also be interested in looking at people with disabilities who are living in rural areas, who are racial or ethnic minorities, who are living in migrant communities, youth in foster placements, who are transitioning out of institutional or residential settings, who are poor or low income, who are experiencing homelessness, or who are veterans. So those, again, are some of the potentially unserved or underserved individuals that we're wanting to collect more information about. We're also looking at students in transition, so youth with disabilities, and individuals that are served through other components of the statewide workforce investment system. So that could be people who are working through more traditional SWIB providers and not necessarily through VR, although they may be eligible, and how those systems coordinate together. Another research question is the resources that VRBS is investing in supporting the rehabilitation needs of individuals with disabilities. And then finally, the gaps between the needs and the resources or client outcomes. So I'll pause there for a minute to see if anyone has any questions before we move on. Okay, it sounds like we can go on to the next slide then, please. So this is just a brief overview of how we will be conducting the needs assessment. So we'll be using, as I mentioned earlier, some administrative and program data to understand who's being served, different qualities or characteristics and experiences of the people that we can identify through the admin data. We'll be looking at population data to understand, for example, what the composition of people with disabilities is in the general population in Montana compared to who's being served. We'll also look at best practices research. And then for primary data collection, we'll be conducting multiple surveys, which I'll talk about in a minute, focus groups with different groups of stakeholders, and also one-on-one interviews with different staff, program partners, and other stakeholders. The surveys will be a big push, and that will probably, they'll probably be released within the next month. So definitely in February. And there will be a number of different surveys targeted towards different kind of stakeholder groups. We'll have a survey for individuals that are participating in vocational rehabilitation or blind services. We'll have a survey for people who are potentially eligible but not participating in VRBS services. We have a survey for VRBS staff. We have a survey for community rehabilitation providers as well. And then we have another survey, two more surveys, one survey for program partners. So that would be like individuals in the workforce development system and other related service providers and partners who may be working kind of in parallel with VRBS. And then finally, we also have a survey for businesses that will collect information from businesses both who have already worked with VRBS to understand their experience and input on that, on working with VRBS, as well as those who are not currently working with VRBS, but may be interested in some of the services that VRBS can provide for businesses. Focus groups will probably be a combination of staff and primarily staff, participant, and partner focus groups likely to be conducted. We'll get to the schedule in a minute, but spring and summer. And interviews we've had sort of ongoing, but we'll have a big push for interviews also in this spring and summer with sort of the whole range of program stakeholders. If we want to go on to the next slide. So this slide is basically just how might we work with you at this stage in the needs assessment. And one of the things that we could use help on is once the surveys are released, helping promote the survey and focus groups when that time comes to businesses, to partner organizations, other interested parties. So we'll have links that are accessible and would be great to kind of get your thoughts on how we might reach some of those partner agencies and some of the businesses better and most effectively. And then likewise, participating in interviews if asked, or completing the survey, participating in focus groups if invited would be really helpful for us to make sure we get the breadth of partner and stakeholder experience. The last slide we have, which is next, is just a kind of a brief overview of the schedule, so or the timeline, and you'll see that right now we're in January, so kind of almost center of the project, and so we're conducting some interviews, we're in survey development, we'll be implementing the survey in February, And then we'll be doing focus groups primarily in spring and summer, more interviews in spring and summer. And then we'll be in the data synthesis and analysis starting later in the summer into kind of sense making and report development towards that in the fall and towards the end of the year. So that's kind of the timeline for the implementation of the needs assessment. So I'm going to pause there too, or pause now, because that's sort of the overview that we wanted to provide. So I want to open it up for any questions that there may be.
And I just wanted to add also, Kendra, thank you for providing this, and Chanda Hermanson, of course, who's a great partner with WIOA. And this is all very important information that will eventually wind up in the state plan that we will have to develop when the Department of Labor comes out with criteria sometime, hopefully this year and or at the beginning of 2024. And this will all be pertinent information that'll be needed. So once those surveys come out, and hopefully our B team will be a big help in that with the business engagement, but also to ensure that we're all sending it to folks that we know to get as much input as possible.
That's great. Thank you.
Any questions for Kendra? Hearing none, thank you again, Kendra, for presenting and joining us this morning.
Sure, thank you. And I think that this last slide on the deck, you'll have Kirsten's contact information. So if any questions come up, you can reach out to Kirsten or myself, and we'll be in touch as the surveys are available, and then as the next stages of implementation happen, and there may be some, calls for interviews or focus group participation. So really thank you for inviting us and having the opportunity to share this, and we're looking forward to the next steps.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks. And Wes, I will turn it over to you to go through the director's update. You've got a number of items there listed.
I do, and we're kind of well ahead of time, so that's great. I'm sure none of you will be opposed to that. Some of the pieces that I wanted to update you all on, and this meeting was a little bit light, but you all had called for a quarterly meeting, so here we are today. But hopefully in the next meeting that will be in May in person and in Helena, we'll have a little bit more meat, possible voting that'll need to happen, and some policy updates that'll also be included. For this go around, we're kind of in the middle of a number of things. The legislative session, of course, is in full swing, and I will have an update from Senator Small. My apologies, I didn't see his message. She was asking to provide that ahead of time, and I didn't catch that at the time, but he sent me an email from himself and Representative Buttrey, and so I'll go over that as well. But some things that I've been asked about and that we've been working on, we've been for quite some time talking about the youth waivers that have been requested or will be requested from the U.S. Department of Labor. We've worked with the Office of Public Instruction. We've worked through the Education Training and Upskill Committee has had some input, but then otherwise here at WSD, we have updated those waivers and requests, and they have gone through legal review. They'll be posted for public comment beginning on February 10th, and that will go through March 10th. I would encourage you all to look through those, provide any public feedback or comment that you wish, and I'll send that out as soon as it's posted. You'll all get an announcement that that's been submitted as well. With those waiver requests, there will need to be an eventual vote, and we'll probably call the executive committee together sometime in mid-March to review that and officially allow us to submit that to the U.S. Department of Labor. And we'll be doing it that way because our next full board meeting is not until May. And so that way we can get all of that information done and submitted, should the executive committee at least feel that that's pertinent. Another piece that I wanted to update you all on is the Workforce Services Division has applied for what's called a Youth Systems Building Academy. It's an academy through the U.S. Department of Labor. We submitted that application on January 13th. I'll read here just a little bit. The academy will provide local workforce systems and their community partners with targeted and individualized training and technical assistance to explore, design, test, implement, or scale system level approaches to engage and support young people in the workforce. With these waiver requests, should they be approved, and with our youth program in general, any added technical assistance, especially advanced technical assistance, is going to help us maintain our program where it's strong and help our program succeed where it needs to. And so with that, keep you all updated on when we should hear back. My guess is within the next few weeks that we'll hear back on that. I don't remember the exact date, though, that the notifications will go out. Another thing that the Department of Labor and Industry has participated in with the Office of the Commissioner of Higher Ed, with the Montana Economic Developers Association, with a number of other partners. Boeing has been a part of that as well, and would like to thank Sarah Swanson too for her help. We have worked with an organization called Education Design Lab and the state of Montana through the Montana Economic Developers Association, and one of the economic development authorities, MBAC, is working to obtain funding through an organization and a conglomerate of organizations to help with our youth and getting them onto credential pathway programs. And it's to attract national funders to work on a long-term plan that steers people into careers by developing a more easily followed pathway that includes micro-credentials, badges, and apprenticeship programs that are reinforced by our two-year colleges. So this is a great opportunity. It's been a really collaborative opportunity, and we hope that we'll hear back from that. I didn't get a message as of this morning that I was possibly going to get with an update, but hopefully that update will be coming in the near future, and we will keep you all posted on that as well. I mentioned we have our May meeting. The SWIB will be also visiting with the U.S. Department of Labor, as they have asked to be a part of one of our state workforce board meetings. That will be on the Tuesday, May 9th. We'll be in person. Now that the legislative calendar has been updated, we might actually be able to get some space over at the Capitol, which will be helpful. It'll also make parking a lot easier. But they will be here Monday, May 8th. They will be at our board meeting on May 9th. They're going to introduce themselves and share what their focus is on. And with that, they have asked the board if there are any topics of interest to ask the DOL about, or items you'd like for them to cover. None of you have to necessarily provide that right now, but if there is something that you would like to discuss with the U.S. Department of Labor, you want to have their feedback on, input from between now and May, just let me know and we will communicate with them about that. They'll be doing data validation and youth technical assistance on Wednesday, May 10th. There will be some folks here doing that. In addition, there will be some technical assistance provided and fiscal monitoring as well. On Thursday of May 11th, they're going to visit with Action Inc., which is in Butte. They're one of our youth service providers. And on Friday, May 12th, they'll be visiting the HRDC in Missoula and then traveling back to Texas and or wherever they have come from. So that'll be coming as well. Any questions about that? It's a lot of information.
Just one comment, Wes, and I apologize if I missed it. I was trying to fix something on my screen. But, and that meeting is set for Tuesday, May 9th, that you sent a schedule out before, just to mention that.
Yes. Sorry if I said the wrong date. The
No,
SWIB meeting will be Tuesday, May 9th.
I think you probably got it. I was, like I said, I was fiddling with something, so I probably missed it.
And some of you have asked about legislative updates as well. So just wanted to give you a little bit of an update. Commissioner Esau provided a great update to Department of Labor and Industry last week. So I included some of that information. The Incumbent Worker Training Grant, there's a House Bill 41. It'll expand the eligibility for WSD's Incumbent Worker Training Program. Passed the House and has been transmitted to the Senate. Barb Wagner did a great job providing testimony to the House Business, Labor, and Economic Affairs Committee and to discuss the legislation. Title 37, which many of you had interest in, and we've had a number of updates about, working their way through the system. There are a couple bills, House Bill 151. It, I guess, set the record for the longest bill proposed by an agency. It had an initial hearing held by the House Business Labor Committee last week. House Bill 113 just passed its second reading, and there have been a lot of questions, but also the team here at Department of Labor and Industry has done a great job with that. There's a bill going through, or excuse me, a piece going through the long-term infrastructure planning committee, and I will be providing testimony on that on Thursday for building renovations for the Great Falls Job Service. And as you all know or may know, they are the Montana certified one-stop for the state of Montana, and they have an important piece in all of that as well. I don't know if Commissioner Esau, I'm putting you on the spot, not that you have to give an update of any kind, but if you had anything else to add to that, and the governor's office will be going through a few other bills when we get to that point as well.
No, I mean, Wes, you really hit on all the key ones. Title 37 reform is really a big lift for our agency, and Lieutenant Governor, it's her initiative. So she's been super supportive and at all our hearings. And then we also have had our 2 budget hearings. So those went fairly smoothly, we think. So we're hopeful on that too. So that's about it.
Thank you, and thank you for your leadership on all of those items. Another piece, Paul and I will be attending the National Governors Association Winter Workforce Symposium next week in Washington, D.C. This will be Chair Hopfob's first NGA Winter Workforce Symposium. Should be terrific, really looking forward to it. Some great opportunities there. I've been asked to be a workforce voice on a panel about aligning workforce development and economic development policymaking. And so I have some pieces. Montana is of big interest right now, but also there's interest because of our rural nature and what we're doing to collaborate with economic and workforce development. I'll be on the panel with the Deputy Commissioner for Commerce for South Carolina, as well as a gentleman who works out of the Delaware Department of Commerce, which is a public-private partnership. And so it should be an interesting session, and hopefully Chair Hopfob won't grade me too harshly while he's there with me. But I'll update you all on that. And if you have any input or feedback or questions about it, you're welcome to ask that as well. In a follow-up email, when I typically at the end, I'll send a message to you all about with the recording and any other pieces of follow-up. You can also find all of the presentations from today on the SWIB site, and I'll include a link to that. One other thing that I'll include is American Jobs for America's Youth, or AJ Montana. They have a summer jobs program. They match paid or participants with a paid work experience and pay for some foundational work and skills training, connecting students to adult mentors for the summer. And they also earn post-secondary credit for this program as well, learning soft skills. They sent out some great information last week, I think, or the week prior, and I'll be just including that in a follow-up for you all. They now have programs in Anaconda, Bozeman Butte, Helena, Whitehall, and the Flathead area, along with Yellowstone County. And so I will send that to you all. And if it's something that you or any of your partners in your communities would like to participate in, I would encourage you to do so. I was a mentor for the program last year, and it was a really, really good opportunity. I mentioned to you that I missed Senator Small's message where he asked to give an update earlier. He was going to try and do that at this time, but I missed his message and he had to go to a meeting. But I'm just going to read to you what he had sent to me in an email, which is, on the Senate side of the red tape relief, we've heard bills on liquor and weights and measures. There have been a few amendments made to sideboard some of the department bills. It's normal legislative struggle where the state entities try to take, want to have some of the control, and legislature tries to maintain oversight. Representative Butchery this morning, he checked with him to see where things are on the House side. 2 primary bills of concern for the board, for the SWIB, are the Mercer bills, House Bill 87 and House Bill 152. They're being held in House Business and Labor and maybe amended by the stakeholders, which are for the process of writing. I brought this up at the Great Falls meeting, and now legislative process is looking into the issues, and hopefully they'll be digestible for them by the end of the week. Red tape bills are moving forward with little opposition. So just kind of a brief overview of his message to me for you all, and appreciate his continued commitment to the board, and he's always very communicative with me. So that's what I had for you all, unless you have any other additional questions for me or SWIB, or where things are headed, or what I can do to help you all in your communities or as board members.
Anything for Wes? Well, thank you, Wes. You continue to do a fantastic job keeping all these things straight and lined out for us. And I'm looking forward to joining you or coming up next week on that NGA meeting. We're quite a bit ahead of schedule, so we're likely to give you back your full lunch hour, which I hope nobody disagrees with. But given that, I'm hoping that Dylan, are you with us since we're ahead of schedule? I can't quite tell, Wes, I'm using my iPad. Is Dylan with us, or are we too far ahead?
I see him on there, but I'm not sure if he's officially with us. We can go ahead if you don't mind. Mr. Glenn Disk is also on the call today, and maybe we could move him up, and I can check with the governor's office to see when they'll be available. If that's okay.
No, that would be great.
Hi, Glenn. We had asked Glenn to be just introduced today and have him stop in and say hello. Glenn, you don't need to give anything too formal, but wanted to have you at least given the opportunity to introduce yourself, as you play such an important role in Montana, and we're glad to have you aboard.
Thank you, guys. I hope you can hear me. These are kind of a new set of earbuds for me. But yeah, my name is Glenn Disk, and I am the new director of apprenticeship for the state of Montana the last 3 years. I've been working in the apprenticeship program for Eastern Montana. So I've been out of the Billings office working with folks like Ryan and Bo. It's good to see you guys in Billings. And then I would cover, Malta to Bainville, Eastern Montana. So I'm really looking forward to getting started. This is my week number 3. I think it's Blur's Day today. The learning curve is pretty steep at this point, but I'm really looking forward to working with all of you guys and seeing how registered apprenticeship can support your programs.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Glenn. Welcome to the SWIB, and congratulations in your role. We're looking forward to working with you as well.
Thank you.
I think Dylan said he'll be available at 11:30, so he'll be back in just a few minutes.
Okay.
If we wanted to move on to maybe this committee updates and then have Dylan end things for us.
That'd be perfect.
Start with the Workforce Policy Committee.
Okay, I'm first up
Smith
here.
is on.
I guess just a couple things. Wes mentioned House Bill 41. That actually did come out of Business, Labor, and Economic Affairs yesterday, 10-0. So that's going to the floor of the Senate, I would imagine, in the next day or two. So should be on the governor's desk in the month of February. That'd be great. We, at our recent meeting, we had a extended conversation with Stephanie Gray, the Dean of Gallatin College, talking about their programs, their interface with various other parts of the state, as well as their needs for more space or a better space for sure. I think the only other thing to mention was that it seemed like both Senator Small and Representative Buttry were talking about more items being more agents, or not agencies, but more programs being maybe consolidated into commerce. I'm not sure if that's true or not, or if I misunderstood that. So other than that, I guess the other question that came up was, could I testify on behalf of the SWIB? And the answer is I could not. I identified myself as a member of the SWIB, but since it's not approved by the governor's office or a vote by the SWIB as a whole, it was just left at that.
And I can give a little bit more information about that, David, if you don't mind.
Sure, go ahead.
We may see a SWIB bylaw update for the future. We did get clarification from the legal department about that, which is that you are welcome to testify on anything that you wish as a Montana citizen, and we wish for you to do that, and that's terrific. you cannot testify as a member of the SWIB unless it has been approved by the full board and by the governor's office. But as David mentioned, he did indicate that he was a member of the SWIB and something that we have conversations about. That is up to you how you mention that, but otherwise not testifying as an actual board member. And not that we need it necessarily in the bylaws, but I gather that this question has come up before. So having it written down with a little bit more structure might just be helpful for the future as well. But if there's an item of great concern that you all would like to have the board or members of the board and have the SWIB's backing for, we would just need to get a full board vote and then have the governor's office approve it. So more to come.
I would just conclude by saying it's great at the legislature right now. There's a lot of focus on workforce development and skills upgrades and tax credits and moving things to appropriate areas. So both sides of the aisle are very focused on improving the workforce atmosphere. So it's great.
Super. Thank you, David. Next, Adam, would you like to give an update on education, training, and upskill? Kind of putting you on the spot.
I was looking at my notes and get back to the unmute button. Sure, be glad to give a quick update here. We had a good discussion at our subcommittee meeting. The first thing that we did, Bill Ryan from Dick Anderson Construction came in and gave us kind of an overview of what Dick Anderson has put together as some of their both registered apprentice and helping to bring some young people into the construction space. Some of the work they're doing with different parts of that program all across the state. Really insightful, and Bill does a really nice job running that program. So we got a chance to kind of hear how it's going and where they're working and where there may be some opportunities for other companies to join. We'll talk a little bit later about Build Montana, but Dick Anderson is looking pretty hard at a vertical part of Build Montana to really focus on vertical construction, and should be a great opportunity to kind of pair that in the process. Then Wes gave us an update on braided funding and some examples of how to use those WIOA dollars in youth waivers, and Lisa Newman also gave some examples in that process. That was I think a helpful for us to understand and kind of see where that is. And Wes, I don't know if there's anything you find appropriate for the whole group to know on that, or is it something you want to maybe reserve for a later full board meeting?
About Lisa?
The braided funding conversation. Is there anything you wanted to make sure we had for the whole board here?
I would just say that more to come as well, kind of depending upon the waiver requests and the pieces that I mentioned earlier. When and if those fall into place, then we'll have a little bit more information.
Okay.
So hopefully in May, we'll have some really great pieces to give to you all. But until then, we're just waiting on things.
Yeah.
The only other thing was that Mary Heller had provided that CTSO information sheet. And so I did send that all out to you all in the meeting request, just so that you have it as well. And she just encouraged continued collaboration when the opportunity arises for you all to have input, contact CTSO instructors, be present or be available at CTSO conferences. So that was all in there.
Sure, thank you. And then we had a good discussion. Sarah Swanson gave us a little bit of an update on the business engagement specialist that the Department of Labor has put in place in that process. I think there's some really exciting things there coming for the state as we looked at how to effectively help businesses engage in some of this workforce development effort. Following that discussion, Mary Heller gave a little update on a structure in OPI and some effort along bringing maybe that partnership with education a little bit closer to the forefront. and kind of helping navigate that path together. So I think it was a good conversation. It was good to see, you know, both business and labor and education working to try and figure out how to help businesses navigate this path of engaging in you know, finding talented individuals and creating better pathways through workforce development and helping businesses who are trying to navigate it all together. So I think that was a really good conversation. Mr. Chair, we did also talk about maybe there's a potential to highlight Build Montana with some of the students at our May meeting and bring a couple of those that have gone through the program to talk to the board. And Wes, I see in the notes here you're going to visit about it, so I figured I'd just at least make that ask. I think it'd be a good opportunity to talk about and highlight some of the success stories of young people finding some career paths through that program for the board. So
hopefully we will have some at the May meeting to visit with.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Adam. I think like I said, I love those success stories, and those positive examples are they're great, great things others can use to mirror that success. So look forward to that.
Perfect.
Adam?
Yeah, go ahead, Cole.
Or Chair, I was wondering, is there any way that we could line up to get more information? I know that Mary mentioned about those positions, but wasn't real clear on, you know, how it was going to be structured yet. They were still trying to figure that out. I think that's something that our committee and that the SWIB would be interested in, and maybe obviously can't make decisions for them, but, you know, if they're still building that, if we could, you know, hear what they're thinking and make sure that we're guiding that, you know, what that looks like. And then also learn about the collaboration with Department of Labor and figure, you know, what their plan is for that. I think it's good that we're putting positions towards this, but I would just be interested to know what's the structure, you know, who's gonna, you know, who are they gonna be employed by, where are they, you know, that type of thing, where all that structure is at, as we build out those positions. I think that'd be something the SWIB would be interested in.
Yeah.
Thank you both.
And I know that Superintendent Arnson had to step away from today's meeting, but I would be happy to follow up on that, Bo, and I will make sure that that connection is made for you to ask that question.
Can I add to that too, that it does seem kind of confusing to myself as well, that so there's job coordinators with Accelerate Montana, there's job coordinators with Reach Hire Montana, there's job coordinators with the Department of Labor and Industry, and now we're going to add some more. Is that correct?
That's kind of where I was at too, Patty, is that I wanted to ask some questions about, you know, hey, are we making sure that we're not duplicating efforts here? Not that, you know, seems like everyone, obviously, the workforce is on the top of everyone's mind, but how are these positions going to work together? Are we duplicating? Is it better, you know, is there options where it would be better to have a private entity doing some of this stuff? I mean, I think those are all questions that I have too. And so that's where my question was kind of coming from as well.
Hey, Wes, is Barb on? I can speak to this a little bit, but so
I am on, but you go first, Commissioner.
Yeah, I mean, so I totally understand the question, and it does seem like we have a lot of people doing a lot of different things. I know Barb's team has met with the different groups like Accelerate Montana to make sure that we're complementing the work that they're doing and not all competing against one another. And so in restructuring the department, we really wanted people that were specialists in communities to talk to businesses and figure out their needs. Where Accelerate Montana, while doing similar things, is a little bit more focused on the training programs themselves. And I can't really speak to the other groups, but there are different things that we're doing and we are trying to complement. And so maybe Barb wants to talk a little bit more of how her group is actually being structured around the state.
Certainly, thanks, Lori. I think that was a good description. I keep telling my staff that are on this, our new business engagement team, you know, all of us are walking down this sidewalk trying to get to better workforce development. And this is something that the Department of Labor has always done. We're really good at it. And in recent years, with such a tight labor market, there's so many more people who are also on this sidewalk. And every once in a while, we're probably going to bump elbows, right? They're just getting really busy on the sidewalk, but it's okay because we're all going in the same direction, right? So I've told my team not to be worried that sometimes they will bump in, but to help people know where we're going, where they can go. And it's a really great opportunity for us as WSD, because whereas we've kind of been in the past the people who push forward on this and always trying to remind businesses, hey, we got to think about workforce. Hey, we've got to think about workforce. We're now in this position where every single business and every single group that we work with is already at this point where we've been trying to get them to. So now we can kind of, in some ways, take a little bit of a step back and allow our private sector partners to kind of take the lead on these areas. And just as long as we're there to help facilitate some of those touch points where we can help them get into apprenticeship, they don't need to be setting up their own apprenticeship program. We can help them do that. They don't necessarily need to create a whole new career system. We can help them with that. So part of that is just help is informational and making sure that we are coordinating with people. And in fact, our engagement team, we've actually hired them to be good coordinators and good communicators. So we're not doing that duplication. And we're also helping things like, you know, the Chamber of Commerce has something going on. Well, have they talked to the local community college about it? Have they talked to so we can help make those connections too. So we're not bumping into each other as much, and all of those efforts can build and not be competing. So that's kind of our goals with that. And we've had a lot of meetings with Accelerate about that, and we're really looking forward to that partnership. And I know Mary has been very good about keeping us updated about her efforts as well, and we're hoping to include that coordination as well in the future. So that's my.
Yeah, thank you. I just, Mr. Chair, just one more thing to add. Having walked through this with David and Bo and Billings as we created one, the credibility that comes with having labor and education kind of work with the local district or the local businesses and say, no, actually, you can do this, and here's the pathway. Versus we try to have that conversation as business saying, well, we got it to work over here. And they look at us like, well, we don't do that. It's not possible. And so that partnership working together really helped move some things pretty quickly. And even sometimes when we had the answer, it still was hard. So I think, yeah, I appreciate, Barb, the way you just phrased we might bump elbows, but we're headed the right direction, and that's good.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
No, thank you, Adam, Barb, and Lori for that input. That's very helpful. And Wes, I think Commissioner McGinley had to step out. I just saw it flash across top of my screen for a meeting. I don't know if you'd want to step in and talk about kind of the heavy lift coming up for them on one-stop certification.
Sure. Yeah, and I haven't spoken with Commissioner McGinley about this. They did not hold a meeting, that committee, because there really wasn't a need to do so. But the WEO committee is going to be kind of different than the others, where they will possibly meet a number of times to do state plan or the one-stop certification, but then not meet at other times when there's no business to be done. But coming up, the one-stop certification process is in need of being completed again. And with that, we also want to make sure that we are diligent about ensuring that the federal policy meets our state policy, meets our what's posted, and that we are continuing to do that certification as efficiently as possible. So there will be some work, and there will be notification sent out well in advance for that.
Great, thank you, Wes. And it's a great segue to the executive committee. We also did not meet this last interim period, but as Wes duly noted on the agenda, we will be needing to get together in March to cover the youth waiver request. And with that, we could go back to Dylan Klapmeyer. Dylan, if you're joining us. I know you've got plenty going on in the governor's office, but if you give us a quick update, be appreciated.
Sure. Thanks, Chair Hop. Apologize. I missed you guys earlier. I had to step into another meeting from 11 to 11:30. But yeah, I think I know everyone on the call, but I'm Dylan Klapmeyer, the governor's education and workforce policy advisor. Wes and the chair asked me to just provide some updates on a few bills that kind of cross that education and workforce spectrum that the governor's office is looking at. So a big one for us for work-based learning opportunities is the Advanced Opportunities Act. The reauthorization and funding increase for that right now is currently it had its hearing in House Education last week, and the committee has not taken executive action yet, but the hearing went very well. Lots of education and private sector supporters were there. So I imagine we'll probably get a favorable vote on that this week, and then it will go to appropriations. Again, we've received pretty positive responses to that bill. We are looking to find creative ways to expand it as well. So one way that we're looking at doing that is some of you might be familiar with the Big Sky Tax Credit Scholarship Program. That's the program that allows donors to receive a tax credit for donating to scholarship organizations that provide school choice opportunities for kids. That's the private side of it. There is a public side of it, which gives funding to school districts for innovative education programs. Last session, there was some controversy around that because most of the funding went to a couple of wealthier school districts because, as you can imagine, they're the ones that had the donors willing to take out their checkbooks. So what we're looking at doing is capping that amount that can go to any one school district, and then reverting the remaining funds actually back to the Advanced Opportunities Program, creating more funding for districts across the state to access for work-based learning opportunities. So that bill hearing is next week. So keep an eye on that one. And then another one is the trades education tax credit. That is, and I should give bill numbers here. So the Advanced Opportunities one I was just talking about is House Bill 257 being carried by Courtney Sprunger. And then the Big Sky Tax Credit Scholarship Bill that might bring more funding to it is House Bill 294 being carried by Sue Vinton. So the next one we're looking at, also being carried by Majority Leader Sue Vinton, is the Trades Education Credit, which is House Bill, I lost it here, House Bill 245. That also had a hearing last week, a very positive hearing in House Taxation, because it really is just a tax bill, even though it has positive impacts on education and labor policy. That passed unanimously out of House Tax last week, and had a hearing in Appropriations last week as well. Appropriations has not taken action on it yet, but I would imagine that'll be getting favorable action from Appropriations here soon. And then in general, the governor feels pretty optimistic about where we're at with our education bills and our labor bills. As everyone on the call knows, I think Commissioner Esau's staff, especially Eric Strauss and David Cook, have really been doing a phenomenal job on red tape relief. And they've been working directly with the lieutenant governor on that. And a lot of those bills are moving. Of course, we knew it was going to get a little bit messy just because they're so big and so comprehensive. There's a lot of negotiating going on and amendments and things like that. But overall, those red tape relief bills are moving. I'm trying to think if there's any others. I'm keeping an eye on some education specific ones that are not directly tied to workforce, but are more on academic programming. I'd be happy to follow up with anyone on. But the last one I might mention is some of the folks on this call might be interested in unemployment insurance reform. We have some legislators interested in that topic. The most active one has been Representative Galloway from up in Great Falls. He owns a bunch of Dairy Queens up there, and as we know, the fast food and restaurant and hospitality industries are being hit hard right now. So he's working with the department, Commissioner Esau's staff, on what some reasonable unemployment insurance reform might look like. Right now, Montana is tied with Massachusetts for having the most generous benefits in the nation. And so we think that there's some work there to do to kind of put us back in line with the other states in the Mountain West here. That's all I've got, I think, unless there's any questions.
Great. Thank you, Dylan. Is there any questions for Dylan? Hearing none. Thank you again, Dylan.
Thank you.
And the last item, I guess before I get to the last item, I'll just call, is anything else anybody would like to add for the good of the order? The meeting? Okay. Hearing none, I'll call one last time for public comment. Hearing none, I just want to express my thanks one more time for all of you for joining us this morning. And as promised, you'll get your full lunch hour back and a little more. So thank you again. Meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.